What's up, guys? It's Matt Shute with the Yen Podcast. Today, I have a special guest, Bryan Reilly, on, and we talk a lot about being proactive versus reactive. We dive into like personal development, a bunch of great stuff. I think you'll particularly relate to this episode if you're a real estate agent or if you're looking to get into real estate. It's still a great episode just for any young entrepreneur out there. So I hope you enjoy. Here's the show. All right, guys, welcome back to the Yen Podcast, episode 8. Today, I'm excited to say I'm with Bryan Reilly with Keller Williams. He's a local guy from Wexford. So first off, just want to thank you, Bryan. Thanks for being on the podcast. We connected through Threads, which is wild, and we'll talk a little bit about that later on. But to kick us off, Bryan, why don't you just tell the people a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Matt. I'm excited to be here. So I am real estate agent, been in the real estate business for about 8 years. Started off as a project manager for a mechanical contracting company before that, pretty much right out of high school. So those are really the two things that I've done. Love real estate, love the business side of it. We were talking a little bit about kind of the entrepreneurial journey and what that looks like and the opportunity that real estate kind of gives to go through every step of that. And yeah, man, excited to be here.
It's awesome. So let's just jump right into it. So you said you're a project manager beforehand for about, you said 12 years?
12 years, yeah.
Okay, so at what point, was there a certain thing that made you say, you know what, I'm sick of working for someone else. I want to do my own thing?
So yeah, on day one, out of the 12 years, so I didn't start as a project manager. So I started right out of high school, sweeping a shop floor in a dirty, steel fabrication shop on my first day, and did that. Learned how to do different various things around the shop. Learned how to weld a little bit. Went through a union apprenticeship with the Sheet Metal Workers Union. Kind of rose through the ranks a little bit, I guess you could say. Ended up in an office, doing some estimating and project managing, and kind of all along that like 12-year journey. Starting out, I didn't love sweeping a floor in a dirty steel shop, as you can imagine. And it was like, if I learn how to do this, or if I, put my time in, I'll move up to this step and I'll do this apprenticeship, and then I'll come out of the apprenticeship and I'll be a journeyman, and that'll be better. And it was like the money always got a little bit better, a little bit, not a lot. But it was never really something that like I loved doing, no matter how much, no matter how many kind of opportunities I got and how great I thought it was going to be. And, grateful obviously for all those opportunities and that experience and everything, but it still was never like what I wanted to do.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you had humble beginnings, sweeping floors.
Beginnings.
How do you feel like that has shaped your, like, just your character and journey overall? Do you regret that at all? Or are you happy that you had like the humble beginning of just like sweeping the floors?
Oh, I'm happy that I did it. I mean, if I would have, a lot of people say, I wish I would have got into real estate sooner. I wish I would have done this sooner. I really don't think so. Maybe a year or two or something like that. Yeah. But if I would have started 12 years earlier, even just thinking about like the market and all of that, I don't know what that would have looked like.
12 years ago would have been what, 2012?
Well, it would have been 12 years before that. So that would have been 20 years ago, right? So that would have been like 2005, 2006.
Gotcha. Oh yeah, so that would have been right
19 years old. Yeah, had a young kid at the time. That would have been, I don't know. I mean, it is what it is. It was scary in 2016 too. Yeah. When you take that step and you become an entrepreneur and you're, you don't have a salary anymore. You don't have health benefits. You don't have a retirement plan to like fall back on. I mean, I don't know if there's ever a great time, but looking back, I have no regrets. I guess that's the moral of the story there. Yeah.
So the transition from your previous job into real estate, what was the transition like? And what was it like getting your first either listing or buyer?
That's a good question. So I did both. I did real estate on the side. So, let me back up even a little bit before that. So along the way, knowing, okay, this job is starting to get better, but it's still not what I wanted it to be. I was kind of open to other opportunities. So my wife and I kind of accidentally sort of found our way into like a direct sales network marketing company. We didn't know what network marketing companies were at the time or anything like that, right? So we kind of found our way into that company. Never really made any money from it. although the little bit of money that we made was, probably seemed like a lot at the time. It was, it came at the right time, but the people that it introduced us to and kind of the growth journey that put us on led me to a point where I said, okay, I'm learning all these skills. I'm invested in myself for the first time ever, right? Invested in my personal development. Is there another business out there, like full-time job type status, that would allow me to use that a little bit better? Because I'm impatient. The network marketing thing was great, but the trajectory that we were on, maybe if I would have stuck with it for 12 years, we might have started making something that would have resembled a full-time income. Mm-hmm. And there's another hindsight story with that too. But, so started looking at different sales businesses, started looking at different entrepreneurial opportunities. And for me, I kind of had narrowed it down. Like, I can sell houses and work with people and go in and out of nice houses and help them, buy their dream homes and go through these big purchases and all of that. I can sell cars, which, you can make some money doing that. It's a hustle. It's not as exciting to put somebody in a car as it is in a house. Not for me anyways. Maybe for some people it is. Sense. I can sell, life insurance. Nobody really wants to talk about that. I mean, it's a need that people have. You can make some money doing it. For me, it was like, I'm going to check out real estate. And I reached out to a friend of mine who was a real estate agent who did pretty much start doing it right out of high school. He had sold me our first house, a couple years prior. And I said, from zero, from where I'm at right now, no real estate license, no experience, anything, and not really knowing how it starts, to get to the point of like full-time income, how long would that take? I didn't tell him how much like my full-time income was. He didn't really know. He said, well, there's people who get into real estate and they make $100,000 their first year, but that's not normal. Those people are hustling. Those men and women they're on the phones 2 hours a day, just calling people and they're hustling. And I heard that and I'm like, well, 2 hours a day is a lot less than what I'm hustling right now. Right. So, cause I'm doing network marketing on top of my full-time job. Mm-hmm. So like I'm working 14-hour days basically, and grateful for it at the time, right? So I was like, if there's something I can do in 2 hours a day and make $100,000 a year, which is way more than what I was making at the time, I was like, that's a no-brainer for me. So that was what made me, look into, okay, you have to get licensed, you have to take these classes and all of that. I didn't have any money to even pay for the class. It was like $400, $500. Mm-hmm. I didn't have any money for that. So I signed up on the Uber app in 2015 or whenever this was, early 2016, right? So jumped on the Uber app and didn't really even know how to use it, but turned it on and it started blowing up with people that wanted me to come pick them up. So I did that like in the evenings and on the weekends for a little while just to save up enough money to take purchase the real estate classes, I guess. Mm-hmm. Did that like on my lunch breaks at work. I'd spend an hour a day just on the computer going through that process. Within 4 or 5 months, took the exam. Got the license. So I got licensed in December around this time of 2016. It was around this time, right? So there wasn't many like opportunities kind of going on, but at day one, I had a list of random people that I just started cold calling to see if anybody wanted to sell their house. A couple of them, did. Managed to schedule some appointments to go meet with some people. Didn't know what to do on the appointments, just scheduled them and said, I hope somebody will help me figure this out. I don't think any of those actually turned into anything. I think some of those people still live in their houses, so I don't know what was going on there. But fast forward like a month, sold 2 houses in one weekend. And that was, like a $7,000 paycheck. I didn't get it. I had to wait 3 months to actually get it. That's the way real estate works. But made $7,000 in one weekend, and I was making $3,000 a month. From my full-time job, nice. Right? So that was eye-opening. That's how I knew, like, okay, this is working. I'm doing something right, or at least I'm adjacent to something that's going right.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to stick with this opportunity. So did it for, 15 months and got to the point where, I had a month where I was going to make almost as much as what I was making in a year at the other job. Awesome. And had a good couple months at the other job, had gotten like a bonus and which in comparison to what I was making in real estate was very small, but it was like, okay, this is the as good as it's going to get this year, right? And I'm very busy now because I've got a bunch of real estate clients, and I said something's got to give, and obviously I'm not going to give up the job that I'm making 10 times more. I'm gonna step into that. So the transition was really just a long few months, which is not long, I guess, in the grand scheme, but a few months of just long hours and hard work and doing whatever it takes, because I knew that was the direction I needed to move into.
Makes sense.
That guy told me, if you work really hard 2 hours a day, you'll make enough money to leave your full-time job, and that's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, I know it's 2 hours a day. It's really so minimal when you think about it. Like, especially when you're working for someone else and you're working 9 to 5. I mean, it's a lot more than 2 hours a day. And then as soon as you get that taste of that commission check, that first commission check, or you land your first big client, I feel like it's all over. It's like you're never going back to working for someone else ever.
Right. How do you make, $7,000 in a weekend and then say, I'm going to put this aside so that I can go back to making $3,000 a month.
Exactly.
It's the security, and that's what it is. I mean, people give up large sums of money. And as entrepreneurs, we forget. I'm like, I need help. I need to delegate. What am I going to do? And I'm at that stage now, right, where I'm hiring other people to help me. And I forget, like, there's people that just want that security that will like work for $10 an hour. And in my mind, I'm like, I mean, I was one of those people. It wasn't that long ago, but it's like, man, it's crazy.
I mean, a lot of people too, this is another aspect to it that people don't understand that haven't been in entrepreneurship or even sales or whatever it may be. You really, I'm sure you'll agree with this, you never turn your mind off. Like, your mind's always going, especially real estate. I feel like you probably get a lot of people calling that want to see houses in the evenings because they're working during the day or whatever. But it's like, it's hard to ever come to a point where you can just like completely shut it off for the rest of the day.
So that's interesting, because I was just having a conversation I have this conversation a lot, right? So a lot of people, especially this time of year, a lot of people in my business, real estate agents, but probably entrepreneurs in general, right? Like, burnout is a big thing. So you're starting to feel burned out. And for some people, they're doing a lot of work. They're doing what I was doing in 2016, 2017. They're really grinding 18 hours a day. And thinking, like, as I'm thinking of it, like, I was working other jobs too at the time, which is crazy. And there's people who aren't doing that, that are also feeling burned out, right? So you can't attribute burnout to the amount of work that you're actually doing all the time. It is the way that you're thinking about the work that you're doing, right? Some people spend a lot of time thinking about the work that they're doing. Your brain doesn't know the difference between doing work, and thinking about work. Your body might feel the difference depending on what kind of work you're doing. And real estate's not that physically difficult, right? It's not taking a physical toll on your body, but it is mental. And you have to find a way to be able to shut that off. Otherwise, your brain is going to run 24/7. You are going to get burned out because your brain doesn't know the difference between actual work and just laying in bed at night thinking about work.
Exactly.
And that's where, and as you get busier, you have more of a risk of things slipping through the cracks. So you're more likely to wake up in the middle of the night thinking about that document that was supposed to get signed. And, oh my God, did I forget it? So as you get busier, you're more likely to have those thoughts that are going to lead to that burnout. But you can have those thoughts and you can get burned out without necessarily being busy or making any money or having any success either. So that's, you have to prioritize your time, your thoughts, and I was come up with systems that will allow you to turn it off, right? You guys probably have a system with all this equipment and everything in here to make sure everything's off or put away or whatever it is that you're doing. If you just got up and walked out of here and left, and then later tonight you'd wake up and go, oh my God, did we turn the lights off? We're going to burn did we burn we're going to burn the building down, right? You got to have a system for that. And then you leave and you're like, I know it's done because I followed the system. And when I come in tomorrow, I know right where to start. It's the the in between when you're not working, but your mind is thinking about work that tends to burn people out.
Yeah, that's 100% facts right there. That's definitely gonna be a clip. That was good. There's so much from what you've been talking about the past like 10 minutes that I want to dive into. I'm going to go a little bit back further in your story. So you skipped college.
Yeah.
And there was something that you said, I believe it was when you were doing the direct sales job. You said you invested in personal growth or personal development.
Yeah.
So when you dive into that a little bit about your decision to skip college and then also what you did to invest in your personal development.
Yeah. So the two decisions weren't really related, right? So, coming out of high school, when we talk about the humble beginnings, it didn't start when I came out of high school. I don't want to, we don't have to go into like childhood stories and all that. I know like on every podcast, everybody's like, when I was 17,
they're like, where were you born and what was your home life like?
What was your home life like? Yeah. When I was 17, I didn't have any money. I was broke. I was living in my car. I'm like, if you were 17 and you owned a car, you weren't broke.
Yeah, right? Exactly. I know, literally.
I was showering at Planet Fitness.
That's a great point.
I was showering at Planet Fitness. I'm like, if you had a gym membership, you're not broke, man. Granted, those Planet Fitness memberships are pretty cheap nowadays, but like, when I was 17, 20, 25, like most of my friends basically lived in their cars or crashed on their friend's couch or, didn't even have a gym membership. So like that whole thing is crazy to me, but, anyway, so going back, college wasn't really like an option for me anyways. Had my son, my wife and I were like 19, we're married now. And so had to like get a real, quote unquote, real job. Right. So got the union job, got hired at $12 an hour, which was like more than my parents made. So I was like, this is already great. Again, just for sweeping the floors, like, so that was basically just out of necessity. Again, looking back, like no regrets, grateful for that opportunity because there's a lot worse jobs that I could have been sweeping a lot of other floors and only making $6 an hour. Right. Fast forward, to the personal development part, it really just came from the people that I kind of, I think it was a blessing. I think it was, God's hand that we ended up with the people and around the people that kind of guided us in that direction, right? So the first book that I read as an adult, or actually voluntarily read, I think was probably Rich Dad Poor Dad, and tore through that thing in like a day.
Nice.
And was like, wow, this is eye-opening, right? So just went on a continued journey of just reading and again, didn't really have any money at the time. So going to like the library and use bookstores and garage sales and like anywhere I could come up with books, downloading like bootleg copies on online, whatever I had to do, watching the audio on YouTube, whatever I had to do. So that's, what that investment looked like. And I mean, something else I think about is, at the time it was like, okay, I'm reading all these books now, like, when's my life going to change, right?
Yeah.
Because like I have all this knowledge, what am I going to do with it? I'm reading all these leadership books and then I'm going to work and I'm like, my boss is breaking, the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership from John Maxwell. My boss is breaking every single one of these every single day.
That's awesome.
What am I supposed to do? Like you get frustrated with it before you actually step into it. But now I look back and I'm like, I've had to read some of those books 6, 7, honestly 20 or 30 times, some of the books. And it's like it gradually works its way into your life. It's conditioning. Just like, traditional academics, college and all of that stuff. I mean, it's more conditioning than it is probably actually learning.
Yeah. Do you have a top 3 book recommendations for someone listening
on the spot? So I've got 6, so I'll break it down like this. So if somebody doesn't read a lot, start with shorter books, obviously smaller books. So The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy is a great one. If you're in any type of sales, any type of business that involves negotiation, but even if you're not, Never Split the Difference is a great one by Chris Voss. It's not necessarily short, but there's a lot of stories in there, so it's easy to get through. What's the third one I typically recommend for somebody who doesn't do a lot of reading? The One Thing by Gary Keller is good. That's maybe a little bit longer of a book, but it's probably one of the most rich in terms of like actual insights when you get into like prioritization and, time management and just life management and stuff like that. Anybody, once you kind of get past that point, you're really ready to invest in yourself. I would, especially if you're an entrepreneur and you have a business, I would go with Traction by Gino Harris. It has to do with entrepreneurial operating systems. That book's a game changer. I just picked that up like last year, and I've probably read it 15 times and listened to the audiobook and get into that as much as I can. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey is another game changer that you have to read, listen to the audiobook, go back and reference. I've probably read that book 10 times. I could probably do a toss up on the rest of them. That's 5 recommendations.
Yeah, that was really good.
That's probably enough. I could keep going, but
yeah. And Traction actually just came up on episode 5 when I talked with Josh Roberts, and that came highly recommended by him.
Yeah.
It's coming highly recommended by Bryan too. So go on, buy Traction. I have Traction, but I actually haven't read it yet. So I got to read it.
You got to do the audiobook first. I think somebody recommended it. This is kind of what I've been doing lately. Again, just for anybody who's having trouble getting into that, right? Because school pretty much conditioned us to not want to read.
Yeah, exactly. I know. Yeah. As soon as a teacher told me to do something, I wanted to do just the complete opposite.
Right. And then you graduate and you're like, yeah, I'm going to do more of that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it's like so counterintuitive, but when somebody recommends a book, I'm like, okay, so usually people recommend books that they haven't even read or, whatever, but get the Audible, get the audiobook, whatever, bootleg it on YouTube, whatever you got to do. Listen through it, and you'll notice enough stuff, like especially if you're into entrepreneurialism, whatever you call it, entrepreneurship. You'll hear enough stuff that, like, when you go and get the book, you'll want to get through it, or you'll look for certain things. You're like, I want to hear more about that in particular. It becomes like almost like a guide. Like you're going to skip chapters and I want to dig into this chapter here. 7 Habits is another one that's like that too. Like I said, I've between just going back and referencing through the pages and then actually reading the whole thing cover to cover, I've probably done both of those books like 10 times.
Nice. That's awesome. Is there a specific thing in 7 Habits that you maybe even just like, you probably don't do it consciously, like, oh, I'm going to do this today, but something that you've taken out of that book that you can look back and be like, oh, wow, that certain thing in that book has really impacted my journey or what I do on like a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, that's good. There's probably quite a few. And that's the other thing when you start getting into some of these books is you start to notice a lot of recurring themes, obviously. So, I mean, being proactive, I think that's like habit number 1 is be proactive. That's such an important thing. A lot of people are reactive, especially in my business. Cause like you said, the phone rings, somebody wants to go out and see a house, it's not about like not being responsive or not serving people and actually matching their needs, but it's the difference. Like if you're waiting for them to call you, you're going to have to answer the phone whenever it is that they call. Exactly. But if you're calling them, if you have time blocked earlier in the day to go through and look at your client list and look at their needs and look at the homes that are on the market and you send it to them and say, hey, can you do this one tonight at 5 or tomorrow at 5? You give them 2 options and they get back to you and say, let's do, tonight rather than tomorrow. And now you can, plan your dinner, not sit down at the table and then they call and say, can you do it now?
Exactly.
And that's where, that gives you the ability to turn it on and off. And that's where that helps, feed the, anti-burnout, I guess you could say.
Yeah. So I'm going to jump back to something you were referencing to systems.
Yeah.
So where you're at in your business now, it sounds like you've been doing well, like in real estate now, like you said, looking to delegate, creating systems. Can you dive into that for someone? Maybe I feel real estate's popular, so we might have someone watching that's a young real estate agent or someone that was thinking about getting into it. So if you could just give us like some insight on what that looks like.
Yeah. Like we were saying, real estate is great because it, you come in as a single person like I did, and you're now all of a sudden you're doing marketing, you're doing sales, you're doing finances, you're doing operations, you're doing all of these things. And like I joked before, you're screwing up all of these things and you're learning from these mistakes, right? So it's such a crash course in business that you don't really get, when you're jumping into a, franchise maybe, or especially obviously when you have a W-2 job, a salary job, you're working in somebody else's business. So real estate's a little bit unique in that way. Really for me, it was building up a business that required me to have systems and required me to have a team. Mm-hmm. So a lot of like real estate agents, they've got 20 clients and they're maxed out because it's exactly what we talked about. It's the phone calls coming in at night. Yep. And they get to that level and they're thinking like, how could I possibly do more of this? I'm here. I've hit my ceiling. I can't imagine doing any more work. Here's another good concept. The book's a little bit of a tough read, but 10X is easier than 2X by Dan Sullivan, I think. The concept is pretty self-explanatory, I think, from the title. But basically, to 2X your business, it's how can I double the input to get double the output typically, right? If you're going to 10X your business, you're not going to 10X your input, because it's probably seems impossible, right? And 2Xing your input is not impossible, but it's probably unlikely to happen. You're probably overly optimistic, right? So when you're 10Xing your business, now you have to start looking at what can I take away? So it's subtraction rather than addition. And doing that subtraction allows you to get into, multiplication. And that's where the concept of it's easier to 10X your business than to 2X your business. So it's the same thing with real estate. When you're doing 100 sales a year, which is a level of business that we've been at, 100 closings, right? Most agents don't put any thought into when they're going to do their closings. Mm-hmm. It's just whenever, they go out 45 days from the day they're writing the contract. They're sitting there writing the contract on a Saturday night for their client that they showed the house to earlier in the day. They don't have their calendar in front of them or anything, or a lot of agents like to close on Fridays. I don't know why. It's like the worst day of the week to close, right? So I'm like, from now on, we're always doing our closings on Thursdays. Every other, part of the business, part of the system is built up towards that Thursday closing, right? So we know, we need to get all the settlement statements and all the closing documents or whatever needs to be done on like Tuesday, right? So it allowed us to kind of just help better time manage, right? And kind of systemize. We don't, like our sellers, it doesn't really make sense. We represent sellers and buyers. We help people sell their homes and buy homes. For sellers, they don't really need to even go to the closing. So why are we wasting time driving out to North Huntington for a closing so that we can sit there with our client while they sign one paper and, sit there and accidentally disclose a whole bunch of stuff that they should probably keep their mouth shut about, or they should have disclosed earlier on, right? They're like, yeah, by the way, the water pressure sucks. And they're like, oh. Yeah. I'm like, stop it.
Yeah, you're like, please stop talking.
Please stop talking, yeah. So it just, obviously we encourage our clients to disclose as much as possible before they get to that point anyway. So, it's not that we're trying to hide things, but it's just a lot better if that whole entire experience doesn't even necessarily need to happen. A buyer's mortgage company needs to delay a closing by 2 hours, and now the seller called off work or took a half day, and now they have to take a whole day, and now their boss is mad at them. It's like, you could have signed that paper last week at any notary in the country or in the world. We've done that before. And, just mailed it back and then get a deposit, wired to your checking account at the end of the day, at the end of business on the day of closing, right? So we've systemized, okay, if we don't have our sellers actually attend closing, that took the number of closings that we have to attend from 100 down to 50. And if we always do closings on Thursdays, then I just know that Thursday is going to be shot. And if it's only 50 and that's one a week, we only have one closing every Thursday, let's just do them on afternoons. That way I know at least I have a Thursday morning that I can focus on, the most important part of our business, which is lead generation. Mm-hmm. So when you're doing 20 sales, you're not concerned about those kind of things, time management and all of that, because you think you have all the time in the world. When you're doing 100 sales a year, you realize I don't have all the time in the world. What can I possibly do? What can I take away? What can I kind of regulate? that's going to allow me to, still be able to focus on the things I need to focus on.
Yeah.
So that's, systems come as a necessity a lot of the time, but, it is possible to learn from people who have done it before you and just start at that level too.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's the first house you've sold or if you're doing some other business besides real estate. You could be brand new and you can just say, oh, Thursdays is the day we do our closings. Tuesdays is the day we do our photography for our new listings. Wednesday is the day we do our, home inspections. Maybe, you're dealing with more schedules there, but like, you're not going to get nearly as much pushback as you think. People are coming to you because you have some level of expertise. Even when you're new, you passed a test, you have a real estate license, or, you started a podcast, you have all this equipment. I didn't ask you for any credentials when you invited me to come to the podcast. I'm like, it looks like a good setup to me. And entrepreneurship, I love it. I'm down. Let's go. Right.
Yeah.
I didn't push back on anything. Right.
Exactly.
So a lot of people, when they're starting a business, they're like scared, like, oh, I can't, I have to let the client kind of be in the driver's seat. You can let them be in the driver's seat, but be their guide, be their navigator, and show them this is how this is going to work. This is the options. This is the route. This is how we're going to get there.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like what you just said is so important because, like I told you before, I was in real estate for a little while. So I know a lot of agents, and I feel like, tying it back to the book, being proactive instead of reactive, I feel like real estate, the mindset for so many agents is just reactive. And the mindset going into it is, like you said, whatever the client kind of wants and then letting them steer. But what you're doing is you're not putting your foot down, but you're like, hey, I am the expert and I know what's best for you. And like, let me take you through it rather than you take me through it. Cause I do it on a daily basis kind of thing. So I feel like what you said could be really like invaluable for someone who maybe is even into real estate, thinking about leaving because they're struggling with all these things, just being proactive rather than reactive, which is so common in the industry.
And if you're proactive, then you probably don't have to put your foot down necessarily. Putting your foot down is kind of like a reactive thing if you think about it, right? Yes. So the other part of it is like, what's your personality style? A lot of real estate agents get in and they're, I-type personalities on like a disc test, right? Or, maybe they're even an S-type personality. They just want to serve. They just want to help.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And they don't have that dominant, D-type personality. They're not a driver. So the idea of putting their foot down is,
like scary
to them. Yeah. Uncomfortable, and rather than trying to like do all the, trainings in the world to try to turn yourself into a different personality that just you doesn't align with who you are, just be proactive.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, just tell them up front, I'm here to serve you. This is how I'm going to do that by giving you this roadmap. Right. A friend of mine, he's an agent out of San Diego, does a lot more business than me, does some coaching. And I don't know that he invented this either, but he says too many real estate agents are focused on trying to be the hero of the story, the main character, right? And that could work, but who attracts heroes or who do heroes attract? They attract victims. Yeah, right. So if all your clients in any business that you're in, if all your clients are victims, then that's because you're trying to portray yourself as a hero and they want you to save them, which almost never really works to their expectations. And it ends up being bad. Just like in all the superhero movies. Eventually the superhero becomes the bad guy.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. So don't be the superhero, be the guide. Be like the Yoda or the, Mr. Miyagi, whatever it is. Yeah. You don't have to be the Karate Kid. You can be the guide, right? Mr. Miyagi would smack the Karate Kid around if he wasn't following the process. But he wasn't the main character. He wasn't the hero of the story. That's what we should be focused on, regardless of, personality style. I think that works.
That's a great analogy. Who's your friend? You want to give him a shout out?
Yeah, his name's Bryan Danny. He's on the beer home team out of San Diego, real estate team out there.
Well, Bryan, if you came up with that analogy, that's awesome. Even if you didn't, great job for implementing and sharing it. And Bryan, that's a good name. Bryan and Bryan.
That's easy.
Yeah. That's awesome. So you were talking about, you mentioned lead generation. So that's something that I know people are very interested in. So what are you doing today to generate most of your business?
So if the people that are watching this podcast are really interested in lead generation, then we could do a whole nother episode and just
Yeah,
talk
for
about lead
sure.
generation,
Yeah,
because it's my
definitely.
favorite topic. What I find is most people aren't as interested in it as they should be. Your leads are what drives your business, right? In my business, talking about real estate, but it equates to probably every other business to an extent. If I have a seller client, what do they want me to do? They want me to go out and find them a buyer. They want me to, buyer leads. Leads is a sales term, but it's find somebody that's could potentially be interested in buying my house. That's basically a lead. If you're working with a buyer, they want a house. Go find me a lead. Go find somebody that wants to sell their house, right? So this mindset of, it's my job to serve. I'm not focused on, getting more clients. I need to serve the clients I have. The clients that you have want you to go out and find other people that want to buy and sell their house. That's why brokers exist in the first place. We broker transactions because we're out there talking to people and then connecting. Hey, this person wants to buy, this person wants to sell. Technology has allowed us to kind of automate ourselves out of a big part of our job, or in some cases, automate us out of our job entirely. So that's why lead generation is so important in my mind.
Without leads and without people buying, then
you could have the best service,
exactly,
the best operations, the best financials.
Yep.
But if you don't have any clients, and if you don't have any leads, then you're not going to get any clients.
Yeah, that's all theory.
Right. Yeah. I mean, your friends and family, all of that, but guess what? Those are leads. You're just refusing to recognize them as that until they get to the point of being clients, right? So think of all the friends and family that you're not tapping into.
Yeah.
Especially in real estate, we tend to gauge those kind of things by, how many of our friends and family are using us when they go to sell. Well, how many of your friends and family are sitting in their house that they're miserable in and they're not selling because they don't know where to start and they don't know the process?
Yeah.
Between 6 and 20%, depending on which study you look at, between 6 and 20% of people are thinking about selling right now. Homeowners are thinking about selling right now. The number of sales is down the last couple of years, whether it's the interest rates or the inventory, which is a cyclical thing, because we're talking about getting people to actually put their house on the market, which is more inventory, or would be more inventory. It's a result of people in my business, real estate agents, waiting until their leads or potential clients are at the bottom of the funnel. They're waiting until that person goes onto a website and requests information and reaches out to them, rather than being proactive and reaching out to them earlier on and helping them through the process, or at least finding out if they're even interested in the process. So that's another, obviously case for lead generation. I think your actual question was more like, what am I doing for lead generation?
Yeah, no, I mean, that was good though.
Yeah, well, 6 to 20% of people are thinking about selling their home. So just go talk to people.
Yeah, talk to people.
Whether it's over the, you can pull a list of phone numbers for everybody in the neighborhood and just call around the neighborhood. You can go get a permit and knock on their doors. You can do Facebook ads. You can do, different things on Google and websites. And you can go to the mall, a food court, and just start asking people if they own a home.
Yep.
It's not probably the best way to do it, but
it's better than nothing.
It's better than sitting there and waiting for somebody to come up to you in the food court and ask you if you're a real estate agent.
Exactly.
There's probably more people that own homes than there are real estate agents there, right? So what's the more likely scenario? So that's, for me, efficiency is one of my, and we talk about traction, so core values is important. Efficiency is one of my core values. I can pick up the phone and talk to, I can dial 100 people in an hour and talk to 10 of them, and statistically, 2 or 3 of them are thinking about it.
Yeah. That makes sense.
One of them might be, really thinking about it and ready to go right now, but the other 1 or 2, whatever, it's a numbers game. 6 months from now, 12 months from now, 18 months from now, I'll still be here. Exactly. Let me walk them through the process between now and then.
So do you do all the cold calling yourself still, or do you have a team that does it?
So we all do it. But yeah, I'm in the trenches, so to speak, leading by example. That's not something I think I'll probably ever stop doing.
Yeah. So are you a broker now, or do you have a team?
I have a team.
Okay.
Not a broker. Don't necessarily desire to be a broker.
Yeah. I don't envy their job at all.
You said what?
I don't really envy their job.
You don't envy their job? No, me neither. Yeah, no, that's tough work there. I don't have any interest in sitting in magistrate offices and courtrooms and dealing with what they call depositions or any of that stuff. But
Yeah.
I think having a real estate team is the best opportunity in real estate because it allows you to do everything that being a broker used to allow you to do.
Yeah.
With a better profit margin.
Makes sense.
Brokerages nowadays don't typically have that good of profit margins.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. So we got connected through Threads.
Yes, sir.
Why are you on Threads?
Why am I on Threads?
Or how did you get on it? Was it because Meta was just kept pounding on your
probably. Yes. I mean, yeah, probably clicked something on Instagram or something
that you just ended
they
up
kind
there.
of guided me through, signing up or something, I guess. When I first signed up for Threads, which was only a couple months ago, I remember I never followed anybody. I never did anything, just out of the box, downloaded the app. And I was like, wow, this is all like entrepreneurs and small business people.
Yep.
I'm a Christian, I'm a believer. So there was a lot of like Bible stuff on there and it was really good. And then I posted a couple business things and entrepreneurship things because that's what I'm into. Real estate is like my vehicle, but that's, entrepreneurship is and leadership and growth is really what like my passion is. But I posted a couple things that were maybe a little too related to real estate. And then my feed turned into just all real estate agents complaining. Yeah. The people complaining about the housing market for a while. So I got off of there but I get back on. When that algorithm is working, it's working. There's something great going on there. Obviously we got connected. So
yeah. And what we do is, so my company is Shute Media, and a lot of what we do is social media for small business owners. And I will say, so we go on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Spotlight, LinkedIn, everywhere. And I think Threads, their algorithm for local is like ridiculous. Like it's a really good, like I got a job from being on Threads, like the first couple of days, like a pretty decent job. Me and Brad were at doing an event in Pittsburgh for a suicide prevention event. Wow. And she was just put it out there, hey, looking for videographers in Pittsburgh. We got connected and did the event. And then you reached out when I put out a thread out there. I was like, hey, I'm in Pittsburgh. I have a podcast for entrepreneurship. Who wants to be on it? You responded. I got I can't remember if that was the first or second post or thread I put out there, and you responded.
Okay.
And then I had 5 more people respond, and I was like, this is wild, because I put it out on LinkedIn before, and I've put it out on Facebook, and nothing really, crickets. And then I put it on Threads, and all these people, the algorithm was pushing it
right
to where it was supposed to be. So Adam Asseri, CEO of Meta, or I think Instagram specifically, applaud to you.
Yeah. Doing something right with that algorithm.
Something right with that algorithm.
So people are sleeping on the text.
Yeah.
Text only format. Everybody wants to talk about video. I get more engagement even on Facebook. Now it's engagement with the people I'm following, right? So it's not the algorithm. It is, but it isn't, right? I get more engagement. Just put your thoughts just whatever. If it's easier for you to type out your thoughts than sit behind a video camera and speak out loud, then just type them out and put yourself out there. I mean, but that Threads algorithm is, I haven't experienced it on a local level as much. I get a lot of people that are, it's like the engagement bait where it's like, if you're in Pittsburgh, press the like button.
Yeah, exactly.
No. Yeah.
And then you see you can just tell when it's ChatGPT generated.
Yeah.
It has it'll have a rocket at the end, or it'll say embark, or it'll say I feel like there's 5
Would you say embark?
Yeah, embark.
Yeah.
Especially real estate. I always see, I think majority of listing descriptions are probably ChatGPT. I use ChatGPT every single day of my life, basically, since I learned about it. But I usually type up something and then I'll say, hey, refine this, help make it better. And then I work with it more than I feel like some people just
they just
say, hey, do this for me. And then they just copy and paste without reading it. And I'm just everyone is going to know eventually, if they don't know, what a ChatGPT response looks like. So you had to put some effort in, even though it's doing basically the task for you per se. You have to work with it rather than just plugging and chugging, I guess.
We use it on listing descriptions. I've done that for 3 years. because nobody really necessarily reads them anyways. And then sometimes I go in there and tweak it, and I'm like, it took me longer to get rid of all these fluff words than what it would have just taken me to write the thing myself. But somebody was showing me something the other day on their website, a bio or a blurb of something, and I read it, and I'm like, they're like, what do you think? I'm like, this is ChatGPT, right? And they're like, yeah, how'd you know? I'm like,
yeah,
has that word embark in there? Yeah,
exactly. You can tell.
I never heard anybody use that word in real life before today. Yeah.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. Embark, delve, I feel like is one. There's a few.
There's a handful. Yeah. The rocket ship emoji.
Yeah. Especially on LinkedIn, those business people are getting a hold of ChatGPT and they don't know how to use it yet. So
God bless them.
If you're using ChatGPT, just keep learning.
Keep learning.
Keep learning.
Yeah, keep learning.
So I feel like this will be one of the last things we kind of dive into since we're on the social media AI topic. How do you see AI impacting the real estate industry in the next 5 to 10 years?
The next 5 to 10 years, that's a good question. I mean, it's like everything else. People get really excited about it. And I don't know if every industry is like this as much as real estate. I mean, to a degree, I know that it is, but I feel like real estate's kind of like the worst in terms of people wanting to automate themselves out of a job and wanting to do this technology that, what it really comes down to is having conversations with people, finding out if they have a problem that we as entrepreneurs, no matter what business you're in, you solve problems for people. Talk to people, find out if they even have a problem that's in line with the problem that you solve, right? That's your job. I see people using AI and trying to replace that end of the business, right? So that's the very front-facing end of the business that it should be you. It shouldn't be delegated. It should be authentic. And then there's all the stuff that happens behind the scenes. So I see all these real estate agents and other business people that are trying to automate their text messages to their database and their sphere of influence and whoever else that they're, people they should be talking to. They're automating that, but then they're behind the scenes, shuffling paper, so to speak. Everything's digital, but they're in there, managing their digital signature. So, let's get the AI to, organize our documents. If I could say to my AI bot, here's a bunch of PDF documents that came in from all these different sources for this transaction. Can you label them all and put them in a good order and package it up and, archive it? And then come back, 6 months later and say, hey, pull up that file for 636, Spring Street or whatever. But instead, it's I'm stuck doing that work, and the ChatGPT is supposed to go out and text and email all my friends and family for me. I don't know why we look at it so backwards. It would be great to see, rather than everything trying to be so consumer, everybody wants to be like the next Facebook, I guess. They want to, or like Apple, right? They want ChatGPT on every phone. What if you just focused on let's make a really good, and there's companies that are doing this to a degree, but let's make a really good, what do they call it? Closed language model or whatever, specific to real estate agents with these specific inputs, not everything that's out there in the world of Google, but here's these specific inputs, and real estate agents can use this on the back end of their business so that they can prioritize doing their one thing, which should be talking to people about buying, selling, and investing in real estate.
Yeah. And I don't ever, so real estate is such a relational business. I don't see it ever changing from that, because a lot of times people are making the biggest purchase they've ever made or will ever make. And I'm sure you deal with people that are going through divorce, or they're settling in a state where a parent passed, or it's a very emotional process for a lot of people. So to try to put AI or some type of automated system in front of them, at the forefront of the process, like you're saying, it just not going to work long term.
Right.
I would say.
And I mean, even if in the ChatGPT, conversations are terrible, right? But even as they continue to get better, assuming that they will, I mean, how bad is that we now have less experience talking with people? Mm-hmm. At some point, they're going to probably meet you or see you. If you're worse than the impression that they got of you, how bad is that?
Yep.
They get this really good experience, this really good phone call or text message, and they get, okay, yeah, we're ready to go see that house. And then they show up and you're there and you can't even have a conversation with them. Like,
Yeah.
that's not going to make that's going to feel like a bait and switch to a degree.
Yeah, exactly. Authenticity is something that I feel like every person can detect. And like you said, as soon as you meet that person, if they were chatting with a bot the whole time, they're going to know right off the bat, like, hey, this isn't the guy I was talking to the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's part of the reason why on social media, like, people are so attached to video. But at the same time, just because it's on video doesn't necessarily mean it's authentic. There's people that are one way on video and social media, and when you meet them in person, they're totally different, right? So
yeah, because in video or social media, they're trying to be what they think everyone wants them to be, rather than just being themselves.
Right.
And not everyone's like that, but like you said, there are some people that do that for sure.
Right, and that, I mean, yeah. So video is, you would think, like, probably more ideal for detecting those kind of things, right? So that's in theory why people are attracted to video. It's easier to take that chat GPT and copy and paste it in text form into your Facebook post, but whatever vehicle you can use, like, again, for me, it's just pulling out my phone and typing out something in text into my notes app, or sometimes directly into Facebook or directly into Threads. And it's like it's like a journal entry, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's authentic because I didn't even think about it, right? So just because that vehicle doesn't necessarily have to be authentic doesn't mean that it's not. And just because video is more likely to be authentic doesn't mean that it is, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Just as an entrepreneur or a business person, relationships are the most important thing. Whatever vehicle you're comfortable with in terms of putting your authentic self out there, that's what you should be doing.
Yeah. How important has social media been to your business?
It's been important. One of my pet peeves is when I ask a real estate agent or somebody in business, like, where are you getting most of your business? What's your number one lead source? That kind of thing. And they say social media. It's like, well, social media is not really a lead source. Probably you're using it as a tool for communication, just like a telephone is a tool for communication.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just a different form of communication. So it's just a tool. That said, it can be a very efficient tool. You can reach a lot more people and keep in closer contact with a lot more people than you could just by calling them or even texting or emailing without the help of some sort of chat GPT automation or something like that.
Yeah,
which is what makes it so stupid that people think they need to use chat GPT on social media, because it's like, it's already so efficient.
Yeah, exactly.
The algorithm, can be annoying sometimes, but find a different platform. Find out, who's your target audience and what platforms are they actually on.
Yeah.
For me, it was like, wow, look at all these entrepreneurs on Threads. I can't find these people on Facebook if I wanted to.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Big shout out to Threads, man.
Shout out to Threads.
Shout out. So I got 2 final questions for you.
Okay.
So I usually ask at the end of my podcast, what is something that someone could take out of this to implement today to get 1% better? So I'm going to ask that question.
Okay.
But also, since real estate is such a popular industry, I also want to ask you, so take these in 2 bite-sized pieces. What is one piece of advice you would give someone today that wants to get into real estate to take that first step?
I mean, I think both of your questions kind of answer themselves, right? So looking for that 1% incremental change that you can do today is the one thing that you should be doing today that's going to jumpstart your business, right? Yours might be different than mine, right? For me, that's, waking up early this morning, and I waited until 7 a.m. I didn't want to go any earlier than that, but I started texting, people who have expressed interest in real estate and, telling them we have an opportunity on our team, and are they open to a conversation? Again, solving people's problems. Some people's problem isn't that they want to buy or sell a house. It's that they have the same problem I had in 2016, and I had a job that I didn't like, and all this potential that was building up that I wasn't utilizing. So I'm, part of my focus is helping people like that, and giving them the opportunity to get into real estate. So I think the second question was, what would I tell anybody who does want to get into real estate? Or
yeah, first step that someone could take that is like, hey, I definitely want to get into real estate. What now?
So, I mean, I could give a plug here. I also don't know when you're actually going to post this, but so once a month we do a webinar what a day in the life of a real estate agent is really
cool.
like.
Yeah.
So I think it's next at the time that we're recording this. I think it's next Wednesday, but it's like every second Wednesday of the month at 7:30
cool.
we do it, because there's so many people that we're talking to that are interested in it. It's one of those things that, for different reasons, sometimes it's I love talking to people, I think I'd be good at it. Sometimes it's I really like houses, which typically means you probably won't be as good at it if you're not comfortable talking to people, but they don't realize that, right? So we kind of help them self-discover that when we go through this webinar of what a day in the life of a real estate agent is really like. But that's for anything. I mean, find somebody who's doing it. There's so many resources out there. I mean, go on Threads and just say, I'm thinking about...
Find Bryan.
Find me, find anybody. Just type into it, I'm thinking about getting into real estate, or I'm thinking about getting into mortgages, or I'm thinking about doing this. Anybody in Pittsburgh willing to help, or, whatever. Let the algorithm do its thing on Threads. Yeah. And that's number one.
That's great advice. So I guess that's about it to wrap it up, man. I think you did an awesome job. I really enjoyed talking to you. Super glad that we found each other through Threads. And before we end it, tell the people how they can find you, and especially too, how they can find you in general, just to follow you, follow what you're doing, how they can find you if they're looking to buy or sell, and how to find you if they're looking to get into real estate.
Awesome. So you can find me on Threads or Instagram, Bryan.Reilly_. I'll spell my name out, I guess is the best way to do it. BRYANREILLY. As real estate agents, we have to market ourselves pretty heavily. So I get a lot of spam phone calls all day long because my name and phone number and email are on all over the internet, right? So you could type me into Google and just put Bryan Reilly Real Estate Pittsburgh and you'll find me. But I think the handle on Instagram and Threads is Bryan.Reilly_.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Bryan, for being here today, and wish you the best. Happy holidays.
Yeah, man.
And thank you guys for watching episode 8 of the Yen podcast, and we will see you on the next one.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, everybody.